Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 84 of the 476ers podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about last night's Spurs games and some of the games before it. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode, I think, again, 83 of the 476ers podcast. We're going to talk about some of the most recent games. We'll talk about last night's Spurs game. Obviously, we'll talk about Joe, terrifying the shit out of us, putting us through a real life horror movie for a good 24 hours, no sleep, no rest, just waiting for an MRI. Although, we'll get to that in a second. So anyway, hope this finds you well. Hope it finds you at all. Welcome, everybody. So, obviously, some big wins over the last three games. I mean, can't be stated enough. We came out the All-Star game. We come out the All-Star break. It's like I gotta give these guys credit. I gotta give Doc credit. I'm gonna give a lot of credit out right now. For someone like me listen, this is one of my best attributes as a human being. One of my best attributes is being able to stand on something and then be like, well, I was wrong about that. And I'm cool with that. I'm so happy being wrong. It's so good when I'm proved wrong. I learned something, nothing wrong with it. I don't have enough pride to be angry when I'm wrong, and I'm wrong. I'm going to give Doc some love here, man, as a coach. Again, my problem with Doc always was, and I had made this clear, my problem with Doc always was the X's and O's. You know what I mean? I just, as an X's and O's coach, and this is not my own thing. This is a widely known thing in the league that in terms of X's and O's, that's not necessarily his specialty. But in terms of getting guys motivated, understanding how to manage personality, getting guys together, I mean, the famous Celtic story, that's a little bit different because Paul Pierce, KG, and Ray Allen were all kind of coming towards the end of their careers. They're on the downswing of their prime. So, their willingness to sacrifice to win was important. But I think that really his ability to manage the personalities of the Clippers, Chris Paul, Blake, DeAndre, is really and JJ too, who JJ and Chris Paul for a long time didn't like each other from college. Even though I think they always had a mutual respect, and so they played with each other and then they liked each other. But that to me is really the thing, because Blake and Chris, while we could say they're cool now, Chris rubs a lot of people the wrong way. And then Blake and DeAndre were all, when they were on the Clippers, they were young and all about having fun. And Chris Paul is a fucking competitor. He's a competitor's competitor. You see it in the All-Star game sometimes. He's going harder than everyone else because he wants to fucking win. I think probably in the State Farm commercials, I'm sure it's the same thing. I'm sure he's snapping on people for not acting correctly, or looking at Carlton from the Fresh Prince, you're acting like me incorrectly. I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death here with these hands. I'll assist your death. So I think that is Doc's thing, but Doc's real metal is getting those guys to work together. But coming off the All-Star break, I mean, you see a ton of teams. I mean, it's well known that teams come off the All-Star break a bit rusty because you take a week off, and most of the guys obviously are not participating in any All-Star activities. None of them are playing basketball. And now with no practice time, essentially, guys come out the All-Star break, and you're expecting guys to be rusty, except we came out on all fucking cylinders. We come out on all cylinders without Joe, without Ben, against the Bulls. And I got it, man. First, let's give some credit to Toby. Toby, I'm going to be honest with you. It's funny because during the first quarter of that Bulls game, I texted a friend of mine incredulously, and I said, Toby, ? All-Star, all caps, ? Exclamation point, question mark, I should say. Exclamation point first, question mark second. It's just better that way. I don't know if there's a rule in the English language that the question mark comes, or, which one comes first. But in my mind, it just looks better to have the straight line and then, boop, boop, just shuts it in. The question mark shuts it and closes it. Is almost like a parentheses. You know what I mean? Or like my one college teacher in math used to say a parenthesis, which confused me for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the semester. I didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. She kept calling it a parenthesis. I thought it was a new rule in math. It has nothing to do with this. And so Toby All-Star, because in the first quarter of the game, he was 0 for 5. He was not looking good. It was not a good Toby game. Again, doing too much, dribbling too much. Is that he came out the All-Star game, he forgot. He wanted to be an All-Star. He came out, he was, I'm going to show you why I'm an All-Star. And then what he actually proceeded to do was show us why he was not an All-Star. You know what I mean? Because just dribbling too much, doing too much. You know, doing the I think I can cross you over, but I can't. You know what I mean? It just don't have it. You know, I was talking to the homie Vic. Shout out to Vic, friend of the podcast. Obviously, he's been on here about him. You know, he was wondering why Toby sometimes doesn't just get, you know, why he's not better at getting to his own spot. And that's a fair question. You know, it's a fair question. To me, the answer is somewhere around along the lines that I just don't think individually, you know, he doesn't have not super explosive, not super quick, and has no real herky jerk. Like his dribble is so contained, it just doesn't really take him anywhere. You know what I mean? Like he don't really have a, and I don't even mean to, I'm here shitting on him and I want to give him love, but it's just the point that, you know, that's just not his game. It's just not ever going to be his game. If he gets switched on a guard, he's going to post him up. He's going to go to work. And that, I think, is his game. You know what I mean? That's essentially our three best players are all post players. You know what I mean? Essentially, it's what it is. So you know what I mean? But then over the last three quarters, he then shows up. Or over the next two quarters, I guess, really, you could say, because the game was kind of out of hand. You know, he shows up. He plays great. Dwight plays great. That game, I think he finishes with 18 and 12 off the bench. Tony Bradley obviously goes 7 for 7. He spawns that Joel Embiid tweet to build around Tony Bradley. Steph Curry, I think, finishes with 10 points and 7 assists that game. But the real MVP, man, I mean, obviously these guys are scoring and you're not going to see him pop up, man, but Matisse is the MVP here right now over these first three games, in my opinion. Watching the games, you can't, he's not, right? Because he's not scoring and he doesn't offer a ton on offense. Although I will say offensively, and I've been saying this since last year, he's a good passer. You know what I mean? And you saw last night, he had a really good pass. The game's out of hand. I think he causes a steal. He regains the ball in the fast break, manages to cradle it and, you know, flick a pass off to the corner, to the far side corner. You know, between two or three defenders. It's a good pass. It's a really good pass. He makes really good passes. He's a smart player. It's just, you know, his shot is inconsistent. His shot is just inconsistent, man. His elbow is just way out there. You know, his elbow is making a right turn. You know, like back in the day when you would, you know, you put your window, I'm making a right, and boom, his elbow is always making the right turn. Except he's doing it with his right hand. His arms are long enough, so when he's in the driver's side, he opens the passenger side window. He puts his right arm out, and that's how they know he's going to make a right turn. But that's his elbows out there. You know what I mean? His elbow is making turns all over the basketball court. But his defense, he's been just. I actually said yesterday, I think that he probably deserves. He deserves to be on an all defensive team this year, even though he doesn't play enough minutes. You know, I think that's going to be what hurts him is like, well, how can you put him on all defensive team when he's not playing enough minutes? But in my opinion, that's the exact reason why you put him on the defensive team, because in the shortest amount of minutes, my man has the most amount of steals. He's in the top 5 in steals, and yet he's the shortest amount of minutes. You know what I mean? And honestly, that top 5 in steals, he'd actually probably be, you know, it'd be a little bit better if it wasn't for TJ right before the All-Star break having that 11 steal game. You know what I mean? He had those 9 steals in the first half. I mean, TJ does it because he's a sneaky fuck. You know what I mean? He kind of sneaks under guys, and, you know, people don't learn. We don't even fucking learn. When we play the Pacers, he gets 1 or 2 steals every game, doing the same shit, waiting for you to inbound the ball carelessly so he can come and steal it. Whereas Matisse is literally just manning up and stealing the fucking ball. If you go by Matisse, if you think you're by Matisse, you are not by Matisse. You are actually within the grasp of he has you where he wants you once you go by him, because he's going to poke the ball out. That's what he's going to poke the ball, steal. You know what I mean? Don't pass the ball around Matisse. Don't be the guy who passes it. You're not throwing an entry pass around Matisse. That's it for sure. That's for sure. Unless you're taller. If you're taller, if you're a joker, you can throw an entry pass. If you're a guard, you're not throwing an entry pass around Matisse. He's just not going to do it. You know what I mean? He's going to steal your entry pass, or he's going to tip it. You know what I mean? I think he deserves, and if the Sixers want him to get that love and they start campaigning and they say, hey, we're going to send this video out, right? What you do is you send the video of this Bulls game of Matisse just man up against Zach the entire game. And I mean, he fucking gave Zach hell, man. Listen, Zach, man, I got to give Zach some credit. You know, that dude's become a complete player over the last few years. When he was in Minnesota, he didn't really look like much. Then he gets to the Bulls. He starts that trade looks a lot better. You know, that Jimmy Butler trade at the time, it was a hustle. You know, they get It was Thaddeus, Zach, maybe a draft pick. I can't remember for Jimmy. And you're like, you just got a lick of bullshit. Much kind of like the Paul George, Victor Oladipo trade, right? Where it was like when it happened, it looked terrible. But then in hindsight, the way these guys improved, and I would say now, even the Jimmy Butler is even better. It's funny because Paul George and Jimmy will always be inextricably linked. They will always be inextricably linked. You can't mention one without the other. It will always forever be. And this happens in the NBA. It's kind of one of the more hilarious things. Kobe and Tim are always going to be linked, even though they didn't come out in the same draft, whatever. It's just that they become linked to each other. You know what I mean? It's not like Dwayne and I mean, LeBron is linked to a ton of players. You know what I mean? Like you could say KD and LeBron are linked. You could say Steph and LeBron are linked. And Jimmy and Paul George will always be linked together. You know what I mean? They will always be linked. And that their trades, now you can compare them and look, well, who actually won that trade is Victor actually has that one All-Star year. Now Zach has the All-Star year, but Victor hasn't been able to bounce back. Zach has been steadily improving every single year. 2 years ago and last year, it was more of a bad team, good stats, bad team guy. And now, I mentioned that earlier, a few weeks ago when I was talking about is Toby an All-Star in the first place, I said not over Zach LaVine, you know what I mean? Not over Zach, because Zach now plays in a way that is winning basketball. That team doesn't have enough. Wendell Carter I like Wendell Carter. He's okay. You know what I mean? And Laurie, is just not assertive enough for me. That dude has every talent in the world, has every skill in the world, but just isn't assertive. I mean, obviously, he bakes us. I think he was like 6 for 6 from 3 or 7 for 7 from 3 in the first half, whatever he does. Starts baking us. It's not even really Toby's guarding him. It's not really his fault. These glasses are just fucking, and it's killing me. If you're seeing me adjust my glasses, it's fucking killing me. They're just, I don't know. Maybe it's my face. Maybe my face is leaning. Maybe my face is uneven, and my glasses are just trying to hold on for dear life. You know what I mean? I noticed the other day my nose is crooked. I was playing basketball, and someone hit me in the nose, and I don't know if that's what did it, but my nose is wild crooked now. Like which of the E standards type crooked. You know what I mean? Wild crooked media crooked. You know what I mean? Crooked eye from the West Coast rapping his ass off. Slaughterhouse crooked. You know what I mean? It's just crooked. You know what I mean? Crooklyn crooked. I could go on all day about how crooked it is. You know what I mean? It's like a lightning bolt right now. Anyway, what was I talking about before I went off my nose? Oh, yeah. Toby, was having trouble guarding Laurie, and that's okay, honestly. What are you going to do? Laurie's a 7-footer. He's a center. Okay, Laurie is KP without the defense right now. You know what I mean? Even though some people have said that they believe he can be a better defender, I haven't seen it yet. You know what I mean? He can tend to be a little soft. It's something I don't know. I don't see it right now in terms of the defense. You know what I mean? But he should be a center. And I think that there's a trade there. And I actually talked about this. Like to me, I just don't understand why this hasn't happened yet. Wendell Carter is 6'9". I'm not even a Bulls fan, but I just want to make sense of this. Wendell Carter is 6'9". Why is Wendell Carter not just your center? I mean, your power forward. And why is Laurie not your center? Just do it. What's the problem here? Wendell's shooting now. He's shooting free, so you can flare these guys out. You can play guys out, and you can still have Wendell guard the other team center if you so choose. Not that he can. I mean, he can guard some centers, but against any quality center, he's getting pretty much wiped off the map. I don't know. Anyway, that's not the point. Who cares? The Bulls. Point being, Zach, and mind you, they've been dealing with injuries all year. You know what I mean? They've been dealing with injuries all year, and they're here fighting for a playoff spot. Zach earned that All-Star game, in the top 3 in scoring, I think in the NBA top 4 right now. And Matisse just locked him the fuck up that game. Matisse is the reason why we won that game, arguably. You know what I mean? Because he took their best player out of the game. They didn't have anything anymore. They had no choices, no options. There was nothing they could do. It was too late. Like by the time they had gotten any type of whatever, Matisse had already just shut their best player down. He deserves a ton of credit. You know what I mean? And then obviously Friday, the day that Joe hurts him, so the day that the earth stood still, you know what I mean? Terrifying injury. Thank God Joe got up. I think his reaction is what scared most of us, because it looked like he was crying. And, that's difficult. You know what I mean? You see that and you're like, oh man, he knows something is wrong. But I think ultimately looking back on that, I don't know if he was crying or not, but it just seemed like, I think that maybe if he was, it just seemed probably like he has this vision. Joe has come into this season differently. Let's be clear. And there's been reports about it since the summertime. Well, since after the bubble, I should say. There was reports about him being pissed that Rudy took his spot in the All-NBA, because I would be pissed too. Rudy didn't deserve to take that. So I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Even though Rudy, shout out to him, had a monster game yesterday, finished with 25 and 28. But obviously Joe was pissed about that. He obviously came in dedicated, came in focused, no bullshitting. You don't see him fucking around. You see him laughing with guys on the court, but it's business. You know what I mean? He's laughing with guys on the court because he knows he's the best guy on the court most times. And I think if he was actually being faced with a guy that he was maybe scared of, or that he had to give that respect to, I don't think he'd be laughing as much. You know what I mean? Not until the game was pretty much out of, like, it's ours. That man is, he's our MVP. He's our MVP. And I think it's him. He's the reason why I think we came out this hot, because I think that sometimes with basketball is so beautiful. Basketball is my favorite sport, right? And this is the reason why, because there are things that are inexplicable on a basketball court you can't understand. I talked about this yesterday with a friend of mine at the gym, that, there's energy that goes into the basketball, and a lot of it is confidence, where when you're moving the ball on a team, when you're moving the ball a lot, what happens is, I pass the ball to you, right? Because I'm putting my confidence in this ball to you, because I know that I'm confident you're going to make the right play, whether you shoot it or pass it again. And then you may pass, and then let's say you pass it again, more confidence. I'm passing it to the next person. Me and him have confidence that you can shoot that shot. Then he makes that extra pass. And now it's me, him, and him have confidence you can make that shot. And 9 times out of 10, that shot drops. You know what I mean? Anytime the extra pass happens, the shot drops. That is something that you can't explain. Like, that's just energy. Literally passing the ball is energy going from guy to guy to guy. That confidence, and I used to talk about that. There was this time, obviously, these are LA Fitness stories. But there's this dude that moved away pre-pandemic. He actually moved away after the pandemic. Thank goodness. He was trashing me too much. Arguably the best basketball player out there. 6'5". Yeah, I think he was an inch taller than me. I'm 6'4". He was 6'5", maybe 265, all muscle, just a walking muscle, just a muscle walking. You know what I mean? Just a human muscle. The fastest guy out there, the quickest guy out there, had a pretty good dribble, a good enough dribble that you couldn't steal it from him. It wasn't the sexiest dribble, but you couldn't steal it from him. Could shoot, finish around the rim. Just could do everything. Could do everything. And every time we would play Sunday mornings, it would be me versus him captaining, for whatever reason. And I would get pissed because I'm like, you guys are making us captains as if we're on equal grounds. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm competitive. So I'm going to go at his neck every fucking time. But still, right? And the thing is what I always noticed, anytime that would happen, I pick his team, I pick my team, and his team would be so goddamn emboldened by having him, the confidence of having him, that they would shoot with no pressure. All of a sudden, everything they shoot is dropping. And then if me and him switch teams, that same team that has no confidence in me, and they're not missing all of the shots now, missing every shot. They have no confidence in me, no belief in me. And that happens in basketball. So when you have the best player, right, and not only that, but then even go to further, like this is that Tim Duncan effect. This is that Steph Curry effect, right, where it's like when you have these guys who are positive guys, right, who are encouraging guys, who lead by example and lead like that, your team rallies when you're out of the game. You know what I mean? So Thursday, no Joel, no Ben, our team comes out, hey, let's pick them up, right? We dominate. Friday, we have Joel, everyone's confident, dominate. Now, yesterday, Ben is back, but hey, we know we've lost Joel for the next 2 weeks. We're not going to let that fucking affect us. Dominate. You know what I mean? Because when you have the best player and your best player is leading you, right, then you're going to, you know what I mean? And we've seen Joe this year on multiple times encourage teammates. You've seen him at the end of that Jazz game. What did he do? Hey, let's go to Toby in the post. He could have easily just dominated that entire overtime, but he said, no, let's get to Toby here, right? Encouraging guys, that shit goes such a long way. This is always going to be, and this is, not to God rest Kobe's soul. This is always going to be why Kobe isn't one of my favorite guys, because it's different when you can encourage guys and get them to play for you, or when you're like, kind of upstaging your guys. And I always talk about that, like the team that the Rockets had to build around James, is deeper than just saying we're going to get these 3-and-D guys and all that. You have to get guys that aren't going to be affected by the fact that James is going to have the ball in his hands like the majority of the time. His usage rate is always going to be skyrocketing. It's not going to be a move the ball situation. I always talk about that with assists. Assists are great, but they're a little bit overrated, right? Because just because you're an assist guy doesn't mean that you're unselfish. That's not what that means. If the ball is in your hand constantly and you're expecting to make the pass that makes the shot, that's not necessarily unselfish. Yeah, sure, it's more unselfish than making the shot, but if you're hunting for assists, that can't be unselfish. You know what I mean? That's why teams like, when you look at the Spurs, I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine who was surprised when I told him, Tony Parker has never averaged more than 7 assists a game in his career. Never averaged. I think he's averaged, look, I think his career high is 6.4 assists a game for his career. Why? Because that is unselfish. What the Spurs had built, what the Warriors had built, these are these unselfish teams. They literally live on moving the ball. So you have multiple guys, 4 assists, 5 assists, 6 assists. Everyone is moving the ball. You know what I mean? Whereas guys like Russ, if you're not a LeBron level ball dominant guy, you're going to struggle to win. You know what I mean? If your guy is going to dominate the ball and you're not LeBron level, meaning the second greatest basketball player of all time, you're probably going to struggle to win the game. So that encourages guys. You know what I mean? I think Joe has earned that type of leadership this year specifically. I think this year he's come in with that. I think Doc has had a big part to play with that. I think Toby is a pro, and I think that helps. You know what I mean? I do believe, like, I think we have a nucleus right now on this team that could essentially bring in that problematic guy, quote unquote, right? That could bring in the guy, a D'Angelo Russell, let's say, right? If you don't trade your nucleus and you bring in D'Angelo falls in line. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're seeing D'Angelo less ball dominant. You're seeing him play more defense. You're seeing him play within the team, and it changes. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, there's guys like that. You know what I mean? Even James Harden, what James Harden is doing with the Nets, I think that happens similarly here. Guys will fall in line because they're seeing what it is. Ben has always been a pro, not a vocal leader necessarily, but the work he puts in is clear, right? So guys follow that. And then you got Danny and Steph. The nucleus that's built here is a pro. It's pro. You know what I mean? Like, this is a pro team. People are not here to fuck around. So seeing us blow out these teams is that. This is not a long-term solution. Let me be clear. This is not going to go on long-term. We're going to hit some roads. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if we lost to the Knicks. Should the Knicks beat us? I think even with Joe, we shouldn't lose to the Knicks. I'll be honest with you. But the Knicks are a pain in the ass. They defend really well, and there's going to be multiple times in a game against the Knicks where you're going to be like, we need a bucket, and who's going to go get it? You know what I mean? And you're going to have to, Toby, are you going to be able to get this bucket? Or Ben, are you going to be able to get this bucket? No, Joe. So who's going to get that bucket? And then the Bucks, that's going to be a tough game. You know what I mean? The Bucks, it's going to be a tough game. You know what I mean? Giannis is playing out of his mind again. And now the narrative is starting that he deserves MVP votes, and he does. But we've been better than the Bucks all year. Joe is the MVP. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. So we just got to continue this trend. Beat the teams we're supposed to beat. There's going to be bumps along the way, and just tread water until Joe comes back. And when Joe comes back, I expect Joe to come back with a fucking new fire. You know what I mean? Because he's going to come back thinking, I've lost the MVP this year. Now, because I'm going to miss these 2 or 3 weeks, and he's going to try to get the fucking MVP back, and I expect him to come back on some shit. Listen, this is going to be a blessing in disguise. It was scary, obviously. He's now going to spend time rehabbing his knee, and guess what? He's going to spend time rehabbing his back. I said that I didn't think he should play in the All-Star game, and that worked out for us, because obviously the COVID contact tracing, he ended up not playing in the All-Star game. I think that was probably for the best. Get your back rehab, get it stretched out, get it worked out, and then come back. Well, now, essentially, he's going to be out. He's going to have not played basketball. He'll have played 1 game in like a 4-week span. That's going to be great for his back, and if he's able to rehab, get some workout in, maybe even, can obviously continue with the diet, maybe even drop a few pounds to take some of that pressure off his back and his knee. I expect him to come back looking to coming for blood. You know what I mean? I do. I expect him to come for blood. So we'll see. But ultimately, the point, the point I kind of went off the rails. Matisse deserves to be on the all defensive teams, and he deserves to be there. This dude last night, havoc, just causing havoc out there. And Matisse, you're seeing his confidence, like you're seeing him brim with confidence now, because yesterday when they emptied benches, right? Pop emptied the bench. He knew. Pop knows immediately when it's not the night. You know what I mean? He usually knows in the first quarter. That's why he's famous for that first 1 minute timeout, the first minute of a quarter timeout, because he's like, oh no, what the fuck? I see where this is going already. You know what I mean? I see where it's going. Sometimes it happens to me in 2K. I'll be playing my homie TJ, and he'll take off, and in the first 2 minutes, I'm like, no, I know what this is. I already know what it is. I know what this game's gonna be. I could just quit now. We could just fast forward this. It's fine. Let's get to the next game because this is done. This is out. We're done here. And that happens. You can tell what it's going to be sometimes. And what happened, once he empties the bench, Matisse is still out there. And Matisse looks like he looked like a man again. It looked like a man amongst boys. You know what I mean? Like a man playing at a YMCA with a bunch of camp kids. You know what I mean? Because he's gotten that confidence now. He's got the confidence now. He's playing defense without fouling, right? He's defending without fouling at a high fucking level. And he's just out there causing havoc on defense, just static. That's why I called him static in the first place. Guys like him, guys like Andre Roberson, guys like Ben, it's just static. You know what I mean? Like once they're in the area, you can't even see the court clearly or correctly anymore. You know what I mean? Like it's just static there. And he's just that, he's that. He hits the 2 3-pointers yesterday. Just confidently shot them. Again, the confidence is there. Listen, we're going to benefit a ton. Obviously, home team fans are coming back. Fans are coming back slowly but surely. We're going to benefit a ton from the fans. Our fans tend to be. We have one of the best fan bases in the league. Let's be clear. Except for that time that they thought Robert Covington was like, I don't know who they thought Robert Covington was. As he went into the skills composition, and I was very confused, gets checked out in the first round. I'm surprised he made the pass on the second try, though. I'm surprised he did that. But, I had asked, are there going to be deflections in this year's skills competition? Like they start shooting balls all over like the receiver thing, like the wide receiver thing, and he just has to deflect them. You have to deflect 4 passes, 4 passing lane passes. Then he had a chance. But if you can't deflect the 3-point shot into the rim, unfortunately, doesn't really make sense. I don't know how he got in that motherfucker. Anyway, it's not about Covington. So except for that time when our fan base thought Covington was God's gift, we have a great fan base and a great home crowd. Our home crowd is wild. You know what I mean? And if you're playing like shit, they let you know. Obviously the Al Horford famously dared to shush us, only to the next game come out and be trash again. We remember that, Al. I'll never forget that because you incensed my anger when that happened. I almost threw my fucking TV out the window when you shushed us. How dare you? I'm still angry about it. That happened over a year ago. I'm pissed. Still won't ever shush us. I am not one to be shushed. Anyway, you know what I mean? So, and you're seeing it. The role players benefit from being home. This is always what the talk is, right? It's about, okay, why do you want, what's home court advantage, right? Again, this is like one of those things that can't be explained either. Home court advantage is that your role players benefit from home. It's not necessarily that the fans are going to shake the other team. It's that when you have a good home court advantage, the role players, they feed off that. Guys like Joe, your superstars, don't give a shit. Joe, Ben, right, Toby, they're essentially here to thrive in any condition, right? Especially Joe, your best player, that's like your Kobe Bryant is famous for this, right? To give him some credit after I took some credit away from Kobe, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, guys who fucking loved sucking the air out of a building. Steph has that in him, right? Think about when he hit that 3-pointer 3 years ago against the Thunder. In overtime, almost from half court drains that, how the building turned into a fucking void, a black hole where the absence of sound was so silent, you could hear the silence. You know what I mean? A silence so incredible. There's a room in the world, right? I forgot where this is. I forgot who runs it. There's like a room that is called the most quiet room in the world. And essentially they say you can't be in that room for more than 5 minutes. You'll go fucking crazy because you can hear, you can literally almost hear your blood running through your veins. You know what I mean? You can hear all of it. And that's what these guys like thrive on, sucking the noise out of a fucking arena. Like feels great to them. Joe has that in him. Ben, I think, added to an extent, can have that in him. Toby, I think, thinks he has that in him, but Toby, you don't have a crossover, so I don't know how you can cross over to do that. I don't know how you're going to do that. But the point being, I just so the home fans are going to really help us over these next few weeks. Stay good at home. You see what happens. Seth has a great game yesterday. Danny has a great game yesterday. Dwight is feeding off of it. He's just feeding. You just see him. His shoulders got bigger somehow. And they turned into more fouls. Of course, we know Dwight. Dwight, listen, it's always a foul. Your shoulders. You're always fouling people, man. Your shoulders foul people. It's okay, man. We know it. We already know it. But everyone's just feeding off that. We're going to benefit from that a ton. We ran these boys off the court. Let's be clear. It was a little bit close when we took off in the first quarter. I think we were up 12, and then when their bench came in, when our benches came in, our benches struggled a bit, and they bring the game close, and our starters come back. We get the lead back up to 9, I think, at half, and then that third quarter, that's it. We just run them off the court. That third quarter is just like we go up 20. In a blink of an eye, we're up 30 by the end of the third quarter. We just run them boys off the court. They just and the thing is, like, they still scored 25 points. That's the crazy thing. We're not known for our offense. They still scored 25 points in the third quarter. We just scored 40 something. You know what I mean? You see it. Like, look at these games: 127, 134. Listen, the Bulls and the Wizards are not good defensive teams, so that's fine. But the Spurs are not a bad defensive team. And as they pointed out in the broadcast yesterday, they don't foul a ton. They also don't turn the ball over a ton. And we just made it difficult for them. I like the Spurs. They have a lot of good wing guys. A lot of interesting guys that I like. I like Vassell, is it Vassell or Vassell? I don't know how to pronounce it. Devin Vassell. I like Lonnie Walker. Big fan of DeJounte, even though sometimes I don't know exactly what DeJounte's ceiling is. DeJounte is famous for grabbing more rebounds than assists, even though he's a point guard. I like him a lot. Obviously, listen, they were missing DeMar DeRozan, so, that's a big part of their offense. We struggled against DeMar. Most people do struggle against DeMar, but not that I'm afraid of it. We would have just said, Matisse, do what you did to Zach LaVine, but against DeMar. And DeMar would have had more success, but still, I wouldn't have been that worried about it. They have a lot of guards. They're just kind of in this impasse. They'll be fighting. They've been really good all year without having a whole hell of a lot. They're kind of like in a rebuild, maybe. I don't know what their plan is, but either way, they're a professional team. They're not going to beat themselves, and we beat the fucking brakes off of them. We beat the brakes off of all these teams. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, we got the Knicks coming up Tuesday. Then we got the Bucks Wednesday. We have a couple East Coast home games before we go on another West Coast trip. Let's see if we can identify some storylines looking at these teams maybe for a bit over the next few games instead of me running through the whatchamacallit. Talked about the Knicks a bit. The Bucks have been underwhelming, although Giannis, credit to Giannis, who was able to put this in perspective and basically said, listen, this is practice. You know what I mean? The regular season is practice. We care about the playoffs, and I can respect that. I don't think they have enough, I don't know how their defense got worse. You got a better defender. All of a sudden, people are surprised that Eric Bledsoe was a bad defender. I don't know why. I was surprised when he made the all-defensive team. You know what I mean? Because I had watched enough Eric Bledsoe games to know he's not that good of a defender. I don't know where that came from in the first place. And now somehow the Pelicans are surprised that they're a terrible defensive team. Why? Eric Bledsoe is not a good defender. Never was, not in my opinion. Brandon Ingram, I don't know what happened to him. As he really is the definition of the seesaw. As he added more offensive talent, his defense just continued to take steps back, but like in a real aggressive manner. He takes 2 steps forward in offense, 17 steps backwards on defense. He just left. He's just said that he left defense. He left it behind. You know what I mean? I don't know what's going on. And Zion, he's a ball. He's a walking ball of marble. And that's great for offense. But on defense, it's going to be hard to contest when you're just a ball. You know what I mean? So anyway, Bucks somehow got worse on defense. They play a lot of Dante DiVincenzo minutes, and he's okay. He's okay. He grabs rebounds. He had 10 rebounds the other day. He grabs a lot of rebounds. And, you know, with us, they got Brook Lopez. You know, he's going to be able to eat against Tony Bradley, against Dwight Howard, if we even have them guarding Brook instead of guarding Giannis, you know, because that's typically what you want, right? We're going to have, you know, you have Joe, you put Joe on Giannis, and Joe gives Giannis problems usually. You know what I mean? They're the fucking same size. Giannis has the arms longer than, I mean, Giannis, like, I'm on the second floor of an apartment. If Giannis lived up here and he was like, man, did I lock the door downstairs? He could just reach, you know, reach back through if he had more joints in his arm, he could just reach backwards, like through that door, down the steps, through the other door, and then check if the door is locked easily. You know what I mean? Easily. He could, like, I could open, if I was young, I could open, my car is parked right there. I could just open the window and be like, man, did I leave my phone in my car? Let me see. Just open the door from the second floor. Oh, there's my phone. Cool. And close it, lock it. You know what I mean? The whole thing. The whole thing. His arms are the longest arms. Then we play the Kings. The Kings are just, I mean, they're just up and down. You know what I mean? They're just up and down. I don't have a lot to say about the Kings. I don't know. I don't even know what to say about the Kings. They might trade Harrison Barnes. But who knows if they want to. There's a bunch of rumors that a lot of teams who are fighting for that play-in tournament or in the hunt of that play-in tournament may not want to make many trades because, you know, what's the point? You're fighting for something. Maybe you don't trade guys, you know. So maybe they may not want to trade Harrison Barnes. They may not want to trade Buddy. I would, you know, they're not a good franchise. You know, they're just not a good franchise. I would think, fuck this play-in tournament. Let's move Harrison for value. Let's move Buddy for value. And let or move De'Aaron for value and let, you know, it be Buddy and Tyrese, or move Buddy and let Tyrese and De'Aaron be your backcourt of the future. I prefer that anyway. I mean, Tyrese is a very good defensive player. Big fan of Halliburton. So I don't know. You know, I don't know. This is a game we should win. I'm gonna be honest. We should beat the Kings. We go to Madison Square Garden. That's fine. The Warriors. Listen, Seth yelled at his entire team. They came out yesterday and beat the shit out of the Jazz. You know what I mean? Just a wire-to-wire win. It wasn't a blowout, but it was pretty much a 10-point game almost the entire game, except for times when Steph was not on the floor. You know what I mean? I mean, Steph is, but, you know, if there's any detractors left, I don't know what to tell you. If you are still a Steph detractor or you're someone who doesn't believe in Steph, I got into an argument the other day. And not an argument. It's not an argument. I just commented on somebody's post on Instagram, which I hate doing because, you know, it takes a piece of my soul to comment on something on social media in a way that's argumentative because it's just the worst. It's soul-sucking behavior. But I needed to because it was crazy. Like, people can't keep things in the context. And this guy was like, it was after Steph was, you know, caught in the huddle yelling at his team, which was yelling at them in a super positive way. Unlike LeBron, because this guy compares this to LeBron. Unlike LeBron, who all he would do was just tweet the most passive-aggressive shit he could think of about his teammates, probably during the huddle. You know what I mean? Some motherfuckers want to get in the huddle, but nobody want to make the tackle. What are you talking about? Anyway, so, you know, he's, you know, in trying to reinvigorate his team. You know what I mean? And this guy says, well, now Steph knows how it feels. Steph knows how LeBron feel, except LeBron took his team to the finals. Listen, all right, if you believe that, let me just pour some hot water or cold water on this fucking hot take. One, my comment to him was, yeah, but Steph has never been mistaken for the second greatest player of all time. Okay, that's one. I'm sorry. It's not mistaken to say LeBron is the second greatest player of all time. Steph has never been mistaken as the greatest player of all time. So that's one. No one here has ever said Steph is the greatest player of all fucking basketball time. All time in basketball, Steph is great. No one's ever said that. You know what I mean? That's important because that is the very reason why no one's really expecting this team to go far. Because no one said Steph is the greatest. Steph is like one of the top 18 guys of all time, probably. That's about right. What he's doing with this team is probably about right, fighting for it on the West. Again, then the second part of this, which people, I've cleared this up weeks ago, but I'm going to fucking fix this real quick because this drives me crazy. Yeah, LeBron did take that team to the finals in the East, an East that was fucking horrible. You know what I mean? And then people are, but then he came to the West and did the same thing. Not that first year. Let me remember, he got injured he's never been injured before. He got injured that first year because, well, one, he spent like a week filming in the middle of the season filming for the movie, filming for this redo. Space Jam. He spent a week doing the Space Jam thing while he was on the Lakers. And, you know, that team missed the playoffs. When he was playing, they had no hope of going to the playoffs. And now, let's be clear, Brandon Ingram since then has been an all-star. Julius Randle was on that team since then, has been an all-star. You know what I mean? So they had some talent. Lonzo, all defensive type player, they had talent. You know, they couldn't come out the West though. And then they trade for Anthony Davis, one of the 5 best players in the NBA, and then they go to the finals. Yeah, that's about right. That's about right. The point has always been, can he take that shitty team that didn't have Kyrie anymore anywhere in the West? No, the answer is no to that. The answer is no, as was evidenced that when he got to the finals, they got swept. Yeah, that would have happened against multiple teams in the West that year. You know what I mean? But that's fine. No big deal. It's just maddening. It's just maddening. Can we keep things in context? LeBron is the second greatest player of all time. We don't have to compare everyone to LeBron. It doesn't make any sense. Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? The argument is like, who's greater, Steph or KD? Who's greater all time? That's the argument. Like that's one argument to me. To me, KD is up there. Well, obviously, he's up there. As a singular talent, he might be arguably the greatest offensive player we've ever seen of all time. I've never seen someone make offense so simple. He has made offense. He has mastered offense at a level that he simplified it so much. You know what I mean? But the thing is, for me, again, I put so much stock in that leadership and all of those like intangible things that Steph has, that Steph's guys rally around, where KD has this really complicated legacy with his teammates, that it's like, I don't know what to say about KD. You know, I don't know what to say about KD. Who would you rather have, KD or Steph? Well, if Steph is guaranteeing you 18 years with your franchise, he's guaranteeing you 2 MVPs. He's guaranteeing you one of the greatest MVP seasons, one of the greatest offensive seasons of all time. He's guaranteeing you a few championships. I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't know. Steph won a championship without KD, then won a championship with KD. Because this is the type of argument that people like to do. KD didn't win a championship without Steph. Right? That's the type of argument people love to do. It's silly, but, you know, take that, put that in your pipe and smoke it. I don't know. Anyway, we have the Lakers. I think there's a chance that Joel comes back for this game, but I wouldn't be surprised if Joel doesn't make it on this trip, because this is a West Coast trip we'd be in the middle of. I don't know if AD is going to be playing in this game. You know, AD is injured. You know, it's a shame. AD really, you know, it's a shame. All of these big guys that are special, have like a special thing to them, just the injuries hit them. You know, when you're this big, you get injured, and AD is injury prone. KP obviously injury prone. Joel tends to be injury prone, and it's a shame. You know what I mean? But I don't like to see injuries. I don't know if AD will be back for this game. I don't know if Joel will be back for this game. It could, you know, we could win this game. The Lakers will have fans in the building. We'll see. You know, we beat them before. So is LeBron going to come out and like say, fuck this? We're not going to lose to this team twice. It's possible. It's possible. The Clippers are on a bit of a not playing well over the last few weeks. Last night they got blown out by the Pelicans, who the night before, 2 nights before, got blown out by the worst team in the NBA, the Timberwolves. That's kind of fucking concerning. Even though the Timberwolves won 2 straight games, they blew out the Pelicans, and then yesterday they beat the Blazers last night. And Anthony, you know, I don't know what to say about Anthony Edwards. He has flashes. Yesterday he hit a sidestep 3-pointer that was very James Harden like. It was a hell of a shot. I was going to criticize the shit out of him. The thing is Anthony Edwards, because people aren't pointing this out, his numbers are going up. His shooting, his scoring numbers are going up, but he's also shooting like 30 shots a game at times, like 25, 30 shots a game. It's crazy. He's shooting a lot of shots, and they're not necessarily at a high percentage. Yesterday, he had a good, efficient game. Most of the games have not been efficient. You know what I mean? He also has some crazy dunks. I like him, though. All the rookies seem to be so damn happy. I can't even believe how happy these guys are. Anthony Edwards just always smiling and laughing. LaMelo looks like he's just on a fucking vacation when he's in the middle of a game. Tyrese always smiling, and I don't even know. These guys are so happy. Good for them. So, you know, the Clippers, though, they get blown out yesterday. Kawhi, you know, comes out pretty outspoken, like, hey, you know, we need to be consistent and all this stuff. And Kawhi had a pretty good game. And then you look at the box score and you see Paul George, and you're like, man, Paul, This is not, you just played the Pelicans. They're not a good defensive team. And you went like 5 for 13, and you had like 6 turnovers or something. I mean, what's up with Paul George? Like, it's funny because I always say, when everyone always tries, anytime somebody is a complete offensive player, they're like, oh man, he's like T-Mac. And then he'll have nothing to do. Like, I've heard people compare Markelle when he came out of college to T-Mac, and I was like, I don't see it because Markelle's a point guard, and I don't see anything similar. And I don't know why no one ever compares Paul George to T-Mac, because he really is the more T-Mac. Just like a super smooth, fluid, can shoot anywhere, can score from anywhere, except sometimes he has games like yesterday. I don't know what to say about him. The Nuggets are interesting. Jamal Murray the other day went 1 for 12. I don't know what to say about that. You know what I mean? He's had some weird games, man. Like, he's like 1 for 12 with 8 assists, though. But what is that? What are you 1 for 12? How did you go from scoring 50 in the playoffs against the Jazz, right? And, maybe he's just a big game player. But, man, 1 for 12? That's kind of wild. That was against the Grizzlies. Obviously, Joker's having a wild game. If we don't have Joe here, listen, they could beat us. We don't have an answer for Joker. Even with Joe, we're going to struggle against Joker probably, but we don't have an answer for Joker. So they're kind of middling a bit. They're middling a bit. They're so up. They've been up and down all season. Their defense has been abysmal. I don't know myself about Michael Porter Jr. Like, at times he looks like this, KD type player, and then at other times I don't even know. He looks like fucking Marvin Williams or something, and I don't know what to say about him. Except Marvin Williams is a good defender. The Cavs are back to, they're losing a lot. They're in the lose. They got blown out last night by the Hawks, who've won. The Hawks have won, I think, 4 straight games now since they fired Lloyd Pierce, which is a shame. I love Lloyd Pierce, but man, maybe it was the right move. I don't know. So the Cavaliers have been struggling a ton. It doesn't matter. We can't guard small guards, so Colin will give us 60 points or something. Who knows? Jared Allen's playing great for them. Obviously, they sat Andre Drummond. By this point, we'll know what Andre Drummond is, if he's going to get bought out or what have you. Yeah, because in between these games, let's see here. Yeah, so the trade deadline will be the day against the Lakers. So we'll see what happens. Again, a lot of guys don't think people are going to be traded. So we'll see. Then we come back home. I would guess that Joe comes back with the team here this Saturday, April 3rd game against the Timberwolves. Again, they played well the last couple games. Doesn't matter. Joe completely eats Cat alive, and he will continue to eat Cat alive if he comes back. And poor Cat, if he has to see Joe on his comeback game, that's going to be a sad, sad sight. Cat's had a tough year. Let's not make it tougher. You know what I mean? And then Memphis comes here, get to see Ja. We should beat that. We should win those games. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. I just gave you a little rundown of some of these teams. Maybe I'll do this every once in a while, instead of running through the standings, because that could be kind of whatever. But that's it, man. We'll see. I'm excited to see what Matisse has really been like. The Matisse Ben thing. It's funny because, on Simmons' podcast 2 weeks ago, I think with Jackie McMullen, she asked, how come Matisse isn't getting minutes? And I was like, man, you guys just haven't watched the Sixers recently, because Matisse gets a ton of minutes for us. And then Bill Simmons said, well, because Matisse can't play with Ben Simmons. And I'm like, no, that's not true either. Matisse has to play with Ben Simmons because Ben gets him a ton of open shots. Hits him like all the open looks. He hits him anytime Matisse cuts, because Matisse is a smart player. I got to say, he is a smart player, man. He just struggles. He's just not a good scorer. But he is smart as shit. He's very good at backdoor cutting. He's very good at cutting. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. You know what I mean? Ben and Matisse on the court together, offensively is not the greatest situation, but defensively is fucking hell. No, has to be terrifying for opposing teams. So we'll see. I think we can really, I think, man, watching this team play over these last 3 games, if we're going to continue playing with this fire and able to hit shots, not that we're not going to go undefeated until Joe comes back, but we may not go 500. We may go a little bit better than 500 until Joe comes back. Maybe we can stay in first place. We'll see. The Nets, I don't know what's going on with KD. You know what I mean? His injury, it's murky. It's a murky situation. He's getting new MRIs and all this. And it's like, man, what's going on? He pulled the hamstring, and, man, that's a scary thing. Hopefully he's okay. Again, I hate to see injuries. You know what I mean? Would it make it easier for us if KD was hurt? Sure, but I hate to see injuries, man. That's not how I don't like that. So So we'll see. That's it, everybody. You know the drill. Wash your hands. You know what I mean? Wear a mask. Nobody wants to see your face anyway. Your breath smells. Black Lives Matter. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. If you choose, listen, you don't have to get vaccinated. I understand that there's like a complicated, in this country, there's a very complicated history with vaccines because in the past, you know, things like this have been used as conspiracies. But this is worldwide. You know, this is worldwide. Get it at your own risk, obviously. But, you know, we could get out of this shit. I'm getting vaxxed. Shoot me with the vaccine. I like, please put a sniper on a roof and let him just pick me off with a vaccine. You know what I mean? Long distance. You don't even have to see me. You don't have to say thank you to me. You know what I mean? Just shoot me with it and keep it moving. You know what I mean? Keep it moving. I need no care. Just shoot me. Spray me. Hit me with a rag of it, you know, like a chloroform rag, and let me pass out with the vaccine just all up in my mouth. That's what she said. That's it, everyone. You know the drill. Wash your hands. Stay safe. Arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. Black Lives Matter.
Yeah. Justice for the blind, just something that'll find in the rhyme that are coming from my mind. Used to come